up.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. And Billy's on fire. I love it. He's all fired up already.
Now that I know people are watching, I'm not anymore. I'm going to shut it down now. Where'd you get that music? Kind of like that.
I think that's the background that they were lip syncing when Mick Jagger and
David Bowie did the thing. I still can't believe you haven't seen that. That's insane to me that you haven't seen that, because you are more likely to send me something that I haven't seen than I am.
Yeah, you know the video that it reminds me of, and there is a lot of subculture around, is Pitchman for RVs. He's the pitchman for RVs.
Oh, what's that fucking movie called?
When something goes wrong in the filming, or he doesn't like the way that.
And that video got passed along with editors. Yeah.
It was an underground VHS tape.
Damn it! What was that called? Winnebago Man. That's the name of it. Winnebago Man. Yeah. And then the dude went and found him in the mountains and shit, and the guy's out of his mind. He's like half blind and a fucking flat earther or something.
That's right. No interview.
That one's fantastic.
Alive. Right now, if you think about it, that's the smart move.
Yeah, it really is.
In the mountains of Montana.
Just fucking disappear and live like you're blind, even though you're not. Like just walk around that little mountain town with a fucking seeing eye stick and a dog and act like you're blind.
You could get away with a lot.
You'd probably get laid too. You know, like the chicks would think like, well, he can't see, so he's gonna be way more all about the other senses.
That's Winnebago Man.
It'll be a new fetish, you know, like the chicks that want to fuck a midget. Like, there's like this little subculture of women that are like, listen, you gotta fuck a blind guy. I mean, if you have never came in your life like I have when I fucked a blind guy. And there's this whole whole group. I still hear music. Do you still hear music?
I do. I don't know how long this
I think it's time to fucking stop it.
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Timing.
Jesus Christ. We should have I know it's weird. I don't feel fired up, but I find myself being fired up. It's weird.
Well, you know, you made an interesting point I saw a Facebook post that you made, and it was very interesting that you said, look how these guys talk, and they're waving their hands around, and they're grabbing each other, and they're touching each other, they're smack. You know, that's how I've communicated for a long time.
Exactly. It's just passion.
People, especially, you know, you go into a comics dressing room, and there's a lot of you go into any locker room of any high school team ever, and there's a lot of back slapping, firing each other up, yelling in each other's faces, getting points across, and it's not a threatening situation whatsoever.
Not even remotely.
That is very expressive, and that's you. That's you right now. You're all.
Yeah, well, my fucking city's on fire, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's I'm uncomfortable and I'm angry and I'm not sure how to express any of it because on one hand, I don't feel like I have the right to. I don't have the right to, and then on the other hand, I feel like I have the duty to. So it's a very weird juggling act where you don't want to appear to be pandering.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to appear to be silent. So it's a tough place to be.
That's true. That is true.
Because when you're silent, I was talking about this the other day. I was sitting at a bar having a couple drinks with the principal of my high school, the North High principal, and we were kind of talking about everything that was going on and the project I want to do and all that stuff. And the news is on the TV right in front of us. And right before we got to the bar, we got told that there was a 9 o'clock curfew. And we're watching the TV and we're watching this like riot about to happen where people want to loot Target. And I mean, that's not even 10 minutes from my house. And so we're sitting in the bar watching this and we're trying to talk about whatever we're talking about. And all of a sudden, like, no one's listening and we're looking at the TV and he's like, I'm sorry. I'm just so terrified that I'm going to look up and see a kid that I love right there. And I'm going to want to get in my car and go get them. Because they're just misguided. They're young. They're angry. And they should be. But the kids of color should be the only ones that are actually angry. So when I see these white kids act like trying to be angry on their behalf, it's just pandering. No one's buying that. That's just you trying to show everybody that you're one of the good ones, so to speak. Like it's just a very hard thing for me to watch because I literally have been downtown in the middle of this shit for the last 3 to 4 days, and 95% of the destruction I'm seeing being caused by little skinny fucking white kids from suburbs. Because they're just overcompensating. Or, if you want to buy into conspiracy theories, they're paid by whoever the fuck, and there's a pallet of bricks on a corner. I mean, who the fuck knows? But either way, no one that's actually trying to help anything is breaking shit right now.
Of course not.
And anyone who's trying to break shit in order to be listened to when they've done the peaceful things, when they've done everything else and no one's listening and they feel like you're not going to listen to me until I break your fucking window, I can get on board with that. That's fine. Like, nothing got changed in this country till people started breaking shit. Look at every fucking thing. I mean, look at women trying to gain the right to vote. Nothing happened until they started breaking shit. Nothing happened until they started costing people money. And then move forward to, the gay rights movements and all that stuff. Nothing happened until they started breaking shit. And especially even more so for the gay people. It's like, no one expects gay people to get violent. No one expects any of that to happen. And that's probably,
I don't know. You see,
so they're like, yeah, okay, guys, I hear you.
WWF back in 1985.
Yeah, just go over here. It's fine.
Yeah.
And so it was dismissive. So gay people were like, okay, well, you ever seen Police Academy? Those guys are gay too, and we'll break some shit. Like, there's plenty of butch ass motorcycle riding gay dudes too. So that's what happens. And then once they did that, people started listening. So I don't blame anyone who's oppressed for feeling like they have to fucking break some shit to get people to listen to them. That's fine. But you don't get to go break shit on their behalf just to make yourself look good. That's gross. And you're actually being the racist in that situation because you're using them for your good time. You're using them for entertainment. And if you listen, and if you have been listening, you would know that's been their beef forever. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a cover for mischief, a cover for complete misbehavior.
Well, and just look
which
back.
Then diminishes a message because it's distracting. It distracts from a message. It distracts from a target. It distracts from what really probably everybody wants to accomplish. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people.
Yeah, and
then there's a lot of people that want.
And like I said, if young black kids are frustrated and angry and don't feel like they're being heard, and they feel like they got to go out and break windows and fuck some shit up to get heard, that's fine with me. Honestly, like, I don't care. Fucking loot Target. Loot the fuck out of Target. I don't give a shit. Just don't walk a block and loot Joe's lawnmower service. Because the one mistake that young people make that I know I made and anyone else that ever worked like a regular job has made, and then as you get older, and especially in our line of business where we're basically a small business owner as comics. So we know that business owner doesn't equal rich. But when you're a kid and that doesn't matter where you're working, that business owner signs your paycheck, you just assume they're rich. But 9 out of 10 small business owners are making the same middle-class living that everyone else is. They just don't have a boss. If that, yes.
Well, here's something else to consider. When that Target goes down or that Walmart goes down, a lot of those small businesses that are within the few blocks range of that are there, whether they're touched or not, because it's that traffic that's contingent on that.
Yeah, so now they don't even, and now people don't even want to go to the area. They don't even want to fucking drive there. I mean, I've already watched like Fong's downtown where I've been delivering pizzas. The windows have been boarded up for 3 or 4 days. When the fuck in your life have you ever thought that a boarded up business was open?
Right.
Like never. So nobody's even fucking going down there. Nobody's even thinking to even call. So you're shutting down businesses that actually are on your side.
I gotta tell you, I've performed in a few of the bars around, the states that were open full time and were 100% boarded up with particle board and plywood on the windows, just like their way of decorating the place.
Yeah, to make it look nostalgic or whatever.
Well, yeah, or maybe that's just all they could afford. They're like, hey, we got to have some place to drink. It was more like a fort. And then you go inside and there's a pool table and some neon lights, but on the outside.
Have you ever heard of Hillbilly Hot Dog in West Virginia?
No.
This place, you got to Google it. It's fucking amazing. So there used to be a Funny Bone in Huntington, West Virginia, which is where Marshall is. So it's a college town. And they have this restaurant there called Hillbilly Hot Dog. And you walk in there and everything's wooden and everything's redneck. There's just shit carved in everywhere. They have 2 like reservable romantic tables that one of them is an outhouse with a door. So you open the outhouse and there's a table with 2 chairs and then you just shut the door. and then there's like a bathtub and 2 chairs and a table in the bathtub and a shower curtain. Like,
I love running into places like that.
And then they have like food challenges. There's like I'm trying to remember. one was called the Home Wrecker, and the other one was called the Double Wide. And I don't remember which was which, but one of them was a 1 pound hot dog in a bun in like a glass serving dish, just covered in every fucking ingredient you can possibly imagine in the world. And if you ate that, actually, I think the hot dog was 3 pounds now that I think about it. And if you ate that whole thing, you got a fucking t-shirt and the hot dog was free. But if you didn't, it cost like $30.
Yep.
And then they had the Double Wide, which was a cheeseburger that looked like a cartoon. It looked like 2 large pizzas for a bun. And then just this huge fucking burger with all this shit on it.
They used to serve those down at Grandma Max's at that truck stop
Yes.
of Interstate 80. If you go to almost any Grandma Max, I think they still have those in truck stops nationwide.
With that weird cartoonish bun. What is it with that bun?
It is cartoonish. It's like the Scooby-Doo bun.
It's not even a real bun. It can't be. It's like a thing they poured into a mold or something. Like it's just not even.
It's a gigantic loaf of bread. The bread itself is 2 pounds, I think, and then the burger is also 2 pounds. And you're only allowed to leave off 1 condiment. And I tried that fucking contest so many times, dude.
Did you?
Probably at least 4 times. At least 4 times.
So each time, did you try to eliminate a different condiment to see if you could get through it?
Tried all kinds of strategies every time based on dumbass tips and techniques that my friends were suggesting, and then
don't eat all day.
No matter what, you got your picture taken as a Polaroid that they put up on the wall for everybody to see, and they would write right underneath there,
loser,
died and died. Yeah. And the day, your name, your full name. I was there back in the day. Look at all these ass clowns that tried to eat 4 pounds, and there would be maybe one athletic female among the whole collection of victorious. What they call those where they won the T-shirt? Anyway,
fucking conquered.
They were all
whatever, fucking winner. Who knows?
They were these gigantic dude. I mean, the truckers that.
Yeah.
And they probably trained for it in some way.
Yeah, by eating biscuits and gravy once a day.
It was no problem for them. You know? And my final attempt, I cheated and I cut like the last portions of it down into bite-sized small little bits, balled them up into napkins like the trick that you do.
When you're a kid, you don't want to eat.
And you don't want to eat. And then you hide the food you don't want to eat in the napkin. And I threw it all underneath the table. And like right as she was counting down, I gobbled up like the last 2 or 3 bites and really made a dramatic flirt out of it. It wasn't that hard to act because I was really fucking full. And
everybody starts cheering and stuff.
The free ticket, the picture, the T-shirt, everything.
Yeah, they can't look in the napkin at that point. It's a spectacle.
No, and it's under the table. Yeah, they're not clean, so it's high fives going all around, and I made the mistake. Here's where I went wrong.
It says the whole thing. There's nothing but gristle and fat. It says the whole thing.
And I spent another 45 minutes in the lobby playing NBA Jam. So by the time they discovered the evidence, I was still in the building. Like, I didn't have.
Oh, so no one was around anymore, and they realized you fucking duped them?
Yeah, when she went, 20 minutes later, however long it was later.
Bust the table.
Yeah, and they had discovered me because I was still on site. They're like, "Isn't that guy?" And I go in there, and they make me pay the bill, obviously, of course, and then she very angrily ripped my photo down out of the the Hall of Fame section and like didn't just put it in the Died and Tried, but crumbled the Polaroid up in her hand and threw it in
Made
the
a
trash.
spectacle
like,
of it.
angry. Yes.
You're a fraud. This guy's a fraud.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, can I still keep the t-shirt?
They're so mad. They're so mad about it. Oh, I love that. That might be one of my most favorite stories at this point. You want to know a really good story? My wife, I think it was right before we got married. I was getting ready to leave the house on like a Friday night, and she was like, "Hey, I'm probably gonna start my period, so like we should just fuck right now." So we did, and then right away, like she started. So we're thinking like just normal, whatever, right? And then later on, I leave and I go do shows at the Funny Bone or whatever, and I come home and she's still just like, she won't even let me come in the bathroom. She's been in the bathtub all night and won't even let me come in there. And I'm like, what's going on? This seems fucked up or whatever. And I've got 2 stepkids and my son, and like we didn't want another kid at that point. Like our kids were 7, 8 years old. We didn't want to have another one, She was on birth control. So it wasn't like it was a sad occasion. So it all starts, and then later on that night, it becomes obvious something's not right. So we go to the hospital. And while we're in the hospital, they determine that she had a miscarriage. And like, we're thinking there's no way she could even be pregnant anyway. But so we find that out. So she basically she has this miscarriage, and it's like, I think we went to the hospital at like 11 at night, and we didn't get out until almost 8 o'clock the next morning. And so we're sitting in the hospital room, getting ready to leave and just waiting. And she's exhausted. I'm exhausted. We've been up forever and all this stuff. And just out of nowhere, it's just me and her in the room. She just goes, "Oh my God, honey, you are amazing." And I kind of look at her and she's like, "Your cock killed a baby." I'm like, after all that, after she went through all that shit, the first thing she said to me, and I had been trying for at least a decade to figure out how to tell that story on stage and have it be funny.
Yeah, I can see why.
But I can't.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's like in order for it to be funny, there has to be so much background.
Well, yeah. It's also, there are things that are funny.
Using the word miscarriage in a bit, that's kind of hard too.
Yeah, I'm sure Sam Kinison could have done it.
Well, I used to do this bit about going to the dentist office, and I had this whole thing about, the paper towel they put on your chest with the roach clip, that thing.
Yeah.
And then that becomes their desk the rest of the visit. And then at the end, that thing's full of blood and all kinds of gross shit. And I'm like, I look down and I'm like, did my mouth just have a miscarriage? And I would get a pretty decent laugh out of it. And there'd be comments like, dude, that you got laughs out of saying the word miscarriage. That's amazing. But I'm talking about my own mouth. So I guess that gives me.
Well, you're also making an analogy at a dentist office, and that's really the essence of comedy. anyway is comparisons and analogies that people can relate to, but are probably pretty out there.
Analogy is the best thing, really.
But when you do a true story,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough one to pull off. I mean, that takes a tremendous amount of
like I had
skill. It takes a lot of being able to also just almost have them laughing so much throughout the details of the story that when some of the more shocking or dramatic stuff takes place, they're already so invested into it that they're not going to let that go.
Exactly. Yeah, which is what a comic who has their own audience, like, that's the advantage they have. Everyone's there to see them specifically, so they can come out of the gate with shit like that. Guys like us have to make the audience trust us for a while before we take any chances.
Yeah, and even then you can take chances. You just have to. I always try to see how long I could go before I did anything that was surefire. I call it going into the breach. I would spend as long as possible before I had to go into the breach. You know what I mean? That means go into the set list. All right, like I wore out my improvisational off the cuff.
Yeah.
Yes, I ran out of fuel for being able to make this shit up as I go. All right. How long can I go before I got to go into the breach and go into the tried and true surefire stuff?
Yeah. In which you really only do that.
Great story.
You really only do that after you've been experimenting. Like you really only go to the breach after experimenting didn't work. So it's not like
that's right.
It's not like all of a sudden you fucking mailed it in. Like you're just trying to make sure that the audience leaves thinking you don't suck at that point.
Yeah, 100. Well, or it's just a challenge, when you do 100 shows a year, 150 shows a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can live there, that's great.
Challenges to yourself. It's like you said last week. It's sustainable. My way was sustainable to do it until they fucking pull the rug out from under you. And then gatherings, no less than 10. It's like, well, now we're back to an open micer's dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also your way is the quickest way to get back going again too, because
I certainly fucking hope so.
No, that's the truth, because the clubs can't function at 50% capacity. They just can't. You're not going to get 50% of 325 people to actually buy tickets.
No.
Most of the time when a club is filled to capacity, a lot of those tickets are free, but the club's counting on food and beverage and all that stuff to make money. Well, if you cut that down to 50%, the only way the club can make any money is if they actually sell tickets for that entire 50%. And people aren't going to do that. And
at a certain price point also, it'd have to be like a total off the hook show every time that was, worth $50 a head.
Mm-hmm.
What would that entail? It'd have to entail a buffet dinner. It would have to entail a certain amount of drinks inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, which the clubs don't do. But guess who does?
Like going to totally blow the roof off the place, but also not come in so expensively known.
Yep.
I always say, like, it's great to be famous, but rule number one for me is invest in quality, not celebrity. Let fame sometimes.
No, that's what it is. Like what people don't realize. What people don't realize, just like right now, the Funny Bone in Des Moines, and the Funny Bones Improv, it's a chain, so they're dealing with a nationwide thing. Like they have a conference call and they're like, okay, what are we all going to do? And what people don't realize is the Funny Bone in Des Moines, if you shut every light off and you shut every single utility off in that club, but you have to leave on the walk-in freezer because you can't do anything about that. Everything's got to be frozen. The walk-in freezer alone, just in utilities, costs $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So what people forget is a club has so much more overhead than a bar does. So
and way less traffic hours. A lot
exactly.
less traffic hours. Maybe 25% of the traffic hours.
And when a comedy club gets in a situation like we're in right now, no one's calling the Funny Bone for takeout food.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. They go to the Funny Bone for the show. So if there's no show, there's no Funny Bone. It's a tree falling in the woods with nobody to hear it. That's what it is. So yet and still, even in this situation, in this climate that we're in right now, what you've done is still more sustainable. Because you can go to the states and the towns where it's allowed, and these clubs that are a member of a chain, they don't get to do that. They don't get to go state by state. They have to blanket it across the board. So if one state that has a club in it that isn't reopening, that means every state that has that club doesn't get to reopen. But you can go to the states that do,
same thing, right?
And put a schedule together of some sort. But a comic that's working all these clubs, all the
and
time,
they're also mm-hmm.
Say that again. I'm sorry, you cut
out.
You know,
Billy, my idea of the comedy club, but it's a matter of a variety of venues that can be explored. My idea of a comedy club is not necessarily a structure or a building or a particular venue or establishment. My idea of a comedy club is more like what like a club would be, like a club of comedians, or people who are sort of in the membership of, whether they're maybe just comedy fans, maybe comedy producers, maybe anybody who's rising up, knowledgeable, geeky enough to stay committed, like we talked about before, have the tenacity to stick in this fucked up business. That really is the comedy club. Like it's more of like a loosely formed philosophical membership guild, right?
Oh, 100%.
It's not a structure. It's not. That's my mind of it. And so if you have that, you can take what you've got and go anywhere with it.
It's a fraternity.
It's a matter.
It's a fraternity that's based on an idea.
That's right.
Most fraternities are this fucking label, and they're the lambdas, and they got the fucking triangle and UN Jefferson and all that shit. Comics, we're just a fraternity of an idea. So there's no label, there's no sign, there's no triangle. None of that exists for us.
No, just a microphone and a brick wall.
Right. And because it's based on an idea, the only people that get it are the people that are in the fraternity. So in a sense, it's kind of the same thing. The customs, all that stuff that exists within the fraternal order of a college campus, they exist in comedy too. There's just no label for them.
Yes, and so really, it is kind of where, if you look at it in a sense, for the longest time, comedy clubs, it was like that was the place to go to get the work, and that's was the path that most pursued. But really, if you just do stand up and can bring a crowd, and it exists anywhere. And so it is, while it's, I don't know how comedy clubs are they even operating? The Funny Bone's not even operating right now. Is it closed down,
Yeah. All of them.
boarded up, blacked out,
Every Funny Bone
dark
and
out?
improv across the country is not open right now.
Yeah.
And that's between 15 and 18 clubs. I can't tell you exactly, but
Yeah.
you've got, I mean, Ohio is kind of the mecca. Ohio has Cleveland, has Columbus, has Toledo, Cincinnati. So there's 4 or 5 clubs just in Ohio. But then you have one club in Albany, one club in Syracuse. So there's 2 in New York. And then you have one club in Des Moines, and one club in Omaha, and one club in Kansas City. So basically, the entire country, as far as that chain goes, is waiting for Ohio. You know, because then you got the Tampa Improv and the Orlando Improv, and I mean, so you got Florida, you got New York, you got Ohio, you got Missouri, you got Iowa, you got Nebraska.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more I'm probably missing, but well, you got Virginia Beach, you got Richmond, Virginia. I mean, there's a ton of them all over the place, but the thing is, none of them can do anything until the actual chain decides what to do. So you've got people out of jobs, you've got people, I mean, just you name it, for however long until the chain decides that all the clubs can open. They can't, which is insane to me to think about, because if I were in charge of all of this, I would be like, okay, well, Virginia's okay, we'll do that club, and Nebraska's okay, so we can open that club, and we just do local shows.
Yeah.
You know, even though you got 50% capacity, you know, you can find a way to make a little bit of money if you keep it local, because you don't got to put anybody up. You don't got, you know, there's all kinds of expenses you cut by doing a local show. But the problem is, you open up that first week and you do that local show. What are you going to do next week? What are you going to do the week after that, or the week after that? Because at some point, you're going to need somebody to buy a plane ticket.
Well, you know, if it were me, I would copy the great Vince McMahon, and I would use the facilities to create all kinds of crazy content and do a big build up once a month, and then have your once a month big live show in person that has a hefty price tag attached to it. Like you said, a bunch of build up, hype. And if 2 jagoffs like us can sit here and make it happen, when you have facilities that you don't need a fucking green screen to have great lighting and a brick wall, and you have green rooms, and you do have access to a tremendous amount of time, and maybe this is happening, I don't know, I just don't follow it, you know. I stay down in my base
in your bunker, like Donald Trump.
And but you know, build it up like old school pro wrestling, you know, build it up for a month and then have a big, huge bang out monthly show that is maybe even invitation only, VIPs only. You know, of course, you invite everybody.
Is there another industry outside of comedy that can influence comedy more than pro wrestling?
Yes, rap and evangelicals.
Okay, I like that actually. One of my main influences as far as comedy goes. We talked last week about how our influences were like people that weren't actually comics, or mine anyway. Rap is a great.
Yeah, they can have a pay-per-view. They like. I ate a
Well,
pie.
rap is a great
Yeah,
comparison
go
because
ahead.
I remember being, 18, 19 years old and people talking about Tupac and what made Tupac great. And they all said it was because when you listened to Tupac, you felt like whatever he was rapping about, he was actually leaving the studio and doing. Like he left the
Yes.
studio and he lived the life that he was rapping about. And so that's why rappers
Yep.
are a great comparison to comics because it's about authenticity, really, at the end of the day. So are we on
Yep.
stage
You got to
talking? Are we on stage talking about the life we're actually living? And so that's rap is a great comparison. Evangelicals another one because evangelicals are selling an idea to a group of people and they have to figure out how to sell that idea in a different way than someone else did because they need the collection plate.
Yes, they also have to pick it up with fire and passion every single week. It has to be all new material.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not the same delivery style, obviously, as stand up, where it's rat a tat tat, rapid fire, keep them
Yeah, we
laughing.
can't
But it
have.
has to be fresh and keep their attention
Yeah.
every single week. And there's something to be learned from that, and then apply stand up comedy tools and techniques to that. That's how you get a crowd fired up in a show, get them all emotional, get them buying more drinks, get them,
Yeah.
that's another thing, a reason why I do believe that comedy is needed now more than ever in live appearances. In live appearances, this shit is fine and dandy because what else we got to do? I'm gonna
Right.
find a microphone and talk into it one way or another. But live appearances is where you actually unify a crowd. You want to fucking unify those writers and looters? Bring a fucking this probably actually wouldn't work. Don't do this. Listen, I've seen Evening at the Apollo. I watched the Gong Show.
Yeah,
All right,
they'll put
they
the
won't
hook out there.
screw you and gong you. All
Yeah.
right, but a way that does unify people,
Mm-hmm.
even in these fucking back-assed towns that I've gone to, even in the suburban areas, even in the inner city comedy clubs, which there are those, by the way.
Yeah.
The crowds are all mostly united by laughter. There's always that one or
No,
two.
100. Yeah, there's always the one that writes the Yelp review or whatever that gets mad, but
That's all butthurt throughout the show and sits
yeah.
there with their arms crossed and a frown on their face.
But that's the thing.
Laughter unites people.
That's the thing we can't worry about. But where laughter really unites people is when the person that's inciting that laughter feels like one of them in some way, shape, or form.
That's right.
They have to feel like, and so like for me, when I'm doing a show where I'm the only white guy in the room, but I'm the guy that's on stage though, so I have that benefit. So even though I'm the only white guy in the room, I'm still kind of in charge. But there's a very slippery slope there. I can say the wrong thing at the wrong time. The thing that I have to keep in mind in that situation is that audience doesn't know me.
Yeah.
Like they really don't know me. So jokes that I can make with my black friends that I've known my whole life, I can't make with that audience. So I have to know the difference between saying something that kind of lets them know that I'm cool.
Yeah.
But also do it without pandering and sucking their dicks, so to speak. Like you have to go into that environment
Yes.
as someone that's not scared, because racism at the end of the day is about fear. And so if you can walk up in front of a group of people that don't look like you and just be yourself, they already know. They already know right then that you are not one of the bad ones. It's the fact that you're here and the fact that you're not scared to be here lets them know that we can all just be comfortable and we can all laugh and we can all do that.
Maybe that's why I have a difficult time relating, because I've never felt that fear. I've never had a fear of public speaking on any level. So, but that includes, that doesn't mean on stage with a microphone in front of an audience. Like, the audience could be one person.
Yep.
The audience could be like one person that's just on a computer screen, like right now, plus the two other people that are watching. The audience could be 3 people.
I can't see it.
100 people. The thing about the way guys like us communicate is by, a business way of looking at it, is it's scalable. We can talk in the same way and fashion to one person that we can to 2 people, to 4 people, to 10 people, to 200 people, to 400 people. And it doesn't matter who those people are. It doesn't matter what that situation is. And there also has to be a certain element of, I also don't care if you like me or not, because I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you.
Because all I got is what I got.
Yeah, if you don't detect that anyway, even if they are jokes, they got to be pop.
Well, I can tell you,
a way of being. There's a way of acting, and there are a lot of people that even if you hang out afterwards, let's say you bomb and you hang out afterwards, that's being. They'll. It doesn't matter the audience,
and they'll be like, "We loved you."
Right, and you hang out afterwards, shows you got balls. And it don't.
Well, and that's what building an audience is essentially. You look at comics that have their own audience and can just go anywhere and sell out a venue. It's because for years and years and years, they connected with one table. And over the course of many, many years, that one table influenced everybody. And so it just comes down to exposure. Like the Cranberries, for example, the band The Cranberries. That chick's voice is so 50-50. Like, and their bombs and their guns. Like, there's people that hear that voice and it's like nails on a chalkboard. But then there's another 50% that think it's amazing and unique and wonderful. Well, if you put that person out in front of 500 million people, that means 225 million people love them. That's enough to make a living for a very long time. And that's why you see younger comics going, well, Bill Hicks didn't follow the rules. Yeah, well, that's because you weren't on the road with him and you didn't watch him follow the rules for fucking 15, 20 years.
Don't really know that much about him. Maybe what he was most known for. Because I've seen that documentary. There's Bill Hicks at the age of 14 doing stand-up comedy, and he wasn't doing Bill Hicks when he was at his peak.
Right.
He was doing, very clean, very vanilla.
He was doing what he thought he had to do to be successful. He was doing what people told him that he needed to do.
Good at it. Or do what you got to do to get good at it. Like, I'm glad that I started out squeaky clean, and I'm glad I did, because you just learn the tools that way. And then when you learn the tools, and then you replace, and then you put in doing what you want to do, it's very difficult not to get. You're going to be able to get a following. You're going to be able to get a crowd.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, how long did it take you to not fucking start your show off in a dog costume?
Yeah, and even that, I wanted to do it.
I know. That's what I'm saying, though.
But then it comes a point where,
yeah, like, how long did it take you to go, okay, enough? You know what I mean? It took a long time.
Yeah.
And
well, some of it too, like, I wish, I wanted to still do that bit. It became such a pain in the ass. It got complaints from bookers. It had all this negative side effects to it. The thing was completely falling apart. So I'm like, all right.
It's not worth it. It's fucking 2 minutes.
Fucking dog. Not worth it. Okay, now cut to 18 months later. There's a fucking sitcom where there's a guy going around in a dog costume. And it was a guy that It was it was someone whose imaginary friend
Oh,
was a
Wilford.
giant walk around
Wilford
dog
with
mascot.
Wilford with
Yeah, yeah.
Elijah
It
Wood.
should have been Wilford.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my bit.
Yeah, except you didn't have an Australian accent, you
That
dumb
was my
fuck.
bit.
You should have figured that out.
No, that's right. I just got it. Replace the stupid costume. Go back to Adventureland. Steal another one. There's a way we could have Ocean 11. We could have Ocean's 11 that motherfucker.
Fuck yeah. Just fucking distract Ben Eulin for 10 minutes. We can get another one.
And then you hear other comedians. You're right. There was you get a lot of what other comics. One guy goes, you know, if you just brought jokes, you'd be okay. I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's those. Well, and that speaks
it.
to those fucking itineraries we were talking about before, where one comic one night wasn't equipped to deal with the audience with his material. And so he spent 45 minutes asking for weed. So now every comic in the fucking country that works for that booker gets a fucking itinerary that says,
can't even talk about
do not ask for drugs. Do not, like all these fucking things, right? Well, then
yes,
I would go on the road and open for people like Mike Merrifield, for example, or I can't think of another name off the top of my head, but we'll just use Mike. And I'm opening for Mike, and I'm watching him every fucking night not obeying anything on the itinerary and crushing. And no one complained because he fucking crushed. And that's when I realized when it comes to language or content of material, the only time anyone pays attention to it is if you're not funny. Like, no one cares how often you say fuck if you're actually funny. And no one cares if you do something sexual as long as you're actually funny and they liked you because your other 45 minutes weren't just sexual. You didn't spend 45 minutes to an hour just talking about fucking chicks in the ass. And you didn't spend, however much time about anything. You did an hour of a variety of stuff. And you didn't pander and you talked however the fuck you talk and the audience loved you. So no one complained. But the guy the week before you fucking sucked and spent 45 minutes asking for weed. So now we have this fucking itinerary. So we feel like we can't spend 30 seconds talking about any of this shit.
Yeah, I think, I was more along the lines of the Mike Merrifield strategy. There was a lot of it where I'm like, I'm not playing by, like, this makes no sense. You booked me for a reason. And
yeah, but remember those itineraries? You got booked for your material. Don't talk to the crowd. Fuck off.
That was the whole thing that instituted that beef between you and I back in 2007 was because I was like, oh, we must follow these rules.
Yes.
And you realize, that actually this is all bullshit. Is based on what one person did.
And at that time, I was young enough to be like,
I figured that out. I was like, oh, these aren't rules. These are like, this is what they put on there, just so they could tell the people that they put that on there.
Well, and I was
even a place no F word. I'd always say it at least once. I go, no F word. I'd always say it at least once, and then I'd say it a second time because I go, oh fuck, I wasn't supposed to say that, just to get laughing. And then I would say,
you fucking hack.
Time, at the end of.
Where'd you learn how to whisper, a helicopter?
Yep.
No, I mean, that's 100% true. And I was actually thinking about that beef today when I was watching, and you alluded to it earlier about that video I posted where this is passion. This isn't fucking rage, and that's just kind of how I was. Right. And at that time, the only people I would let talk to me as if they were an authority figure was someone that was actually an authority figure. So like the only people that could just flat out, and because I can tell you the moment when it happened. We were having the conversation on the phone, and you said to me, "Shut that fucking mouth of yours and do this and that." And so when you said that to me, I'm sitting here going, okay, there's like 3 people in the world that can talk to me like that. And so for me, growing up how I grew up and like that video I posted, it's
I said you roll and shut your mouth. I was doing The Rock.
Yeah, maybe like in a way. But well, what it was the booker in question was telling you that I talk too much.
Oh.
Yes. And you were talking to me based on what you were told. So you were like, shut that fucking mouth of yours. And I'm like, dude, literally told me I could do what I was asking for in a conversation, you know? So to me, I'm like, okay, this person's fucking crazy. And now this person is trying to tell me that I'm a piece of shit, more or less. So I just had this whole thing going on where, wait a minute, I am doing nothing but being disrespected right now in a moment where I had nothing but the most humble and best intentions to begin with. Like I was just trying to do the next thing. I was just trying to go to the next level or whatever it was. And that situation made me feel like I had 2 people trying to tell me I don't belong there.
Yeah.
And then I hear shut the fuck up, basically, and I'm like, all right, okay, we're just gonna have to fight at this point. If that
Well, I think it was trying to play like a game in a way because there was a strat like, all right, I don't want to go down this route. So I was on my end, felt like I had things smoothed over. And then from the other end was hearing that there was more going on than what we had sort of planned to allow play out by, me going in, talking to so-and-so, smoothing it over. And then I would get an earful back from them like, oh, well, this happened and Billy said this and Billy said that. And I'm like, anyway, how that stuff escalates quickly. You don't even really remember, but you're so sure in the moment
that you're right.
And you could, like, I can yell and scream and say almost, you look like I'm not kicking nobody's ass. You know? That's like all I got is yelling and screaming. You know?
Well, and that's what it is. Like
all I got is like vicious verbal,
bark louder than bite.
Yeah, and it's also when you're like, well, the guy that, anyway, you feel like equal class where you're like, oh, I can say like the hardest, vicious roast stuff. This is the one person that can take it. Anybody else, I would never talk. See, that's another thing. You're like, there's only like 3 people that I would let talk to me this way. And I'm like, there's only so many people I would talk to like this. Like,
yeah, well, it goes back to what we were talking about last week with that incident with Bert, with that comic that got all sensitive and stuff. Like, it's kind of that same thing where the way Bert broke it down was so brilliant after it happened. He goes, here's the thing. You're a man and then you're a comic. You're a man first and then you're a comic. Mm-hmm. He's just a comic. That's all he is. So when that situation happened for you, he's challenging your manhood.
Yeah.
And when someone challenges my manhood, that overrides everything else. And that's a personality flaw that I have that I have to figure out why that is. Why that chip on my shoulder is the first place that I go to. And in a way, I kind of know why. And it's because that chip on my shoulder has got me through everything in my life. Every positive thing that I have, everything I've achieved or not achieved, whatever, that chip is why. So as you approach middle age and you're 41 years old, all of a sudden that chip starts hurting you instead of helping you. Because when you approach everything with that chip, all of a sudden people are put off by it and people are scared of it. And you look like you are less mature than you should be. You look like you're throwing a fucking fit like you're a child.
Yeah.
Where in reality, you're just very passionate and you have a sense of fairness and all this stuff that bothers you when it doesn't occur correctly. And so you get passionate about it and you just yell and you scream and you do whatever else, but at no point are you a threat. At no point are you a physical threat. But then you get more angry at the fact that people don't just know that. Like, why don't you, what are you afraid of? Why do you think I'm a physical threat all of a sudden? I've never fucking harmed anyone in my life. Like, why? And it's because I look scary and I'm like bulking up and I'm, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like that video I shared. Where I grew up, my entire life, that video right there is normal. That's completely normal. That is just passion, and no one in that situation is afraid. No one thinks that somebody's just going to throw a punch at them. And the reason no one thinks anybody's going to throw a punch at them is because the person knows that if they throw that punch, they're going to get one back. So everybody is free to just bulk up and look each other in the eye in a mean way and be fired up and talk about whatever, because both of us know neither one of us really wants to throw that punch.
No, right.
But when you apply that to people that one of them involved actually wants to throw the punch and went into the confrontation with the intention of finding a way to throw the punch, it changes everything.
Yeah, and again, there's a certain way of talking in person that you don't talk to over the phone.
Exactly. When you're face to face, it changes.
Exactly, just like you said. If we had done all right,
if we had been sitting in the same room having that conversation, it would have went completely differently.
We'll do the show together. We'll drink a beer. We'll figure it out in that scenario, and then we both would have been like, like when they got to go in the mob movies, they got to go meet on neutral territory, so that way everybody knows.
Exactly. And that was my thing, and that was kind of my thing in that moment. Is I was like, if we were in the same room, you wouldn't be talking to me like this.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And also wouldn't have had the cheerleader in the background say this.
You had a cheerleader in the background? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's new.
That's the part of the story you don't know.
No. Who is the cheerleader?
I'll message it to you.
I already know. You don't have to. I already know. I won't say any names, but his initials are RR. And you know why he was doing that? I think we both know at this point why he was going say this and this. Because because he was jealous of both of us. Don't you think, though?
It could.
I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but don't you think there's an element of that? Because that was a dude that already had a career.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
he had a career and he had responsibilities financially to take care of when he decided to try. And you and I had nothing but jokes when we decided to try, and we didn't give a fuck about anything else. We had nothing to, like, we didn't have some other thing to protect or anything like that. And I think that he may have been secretly jealous of the fact that we didn't have anything to lose and we could just take the plunge.
could be. Brad Feingold says, sounds familiar. I wonder if I could bring Brad on.
He's had a few comments here.
He has. And
is Brad in Appleton?
I think he still lives in Des Moines anyway. And we did.
I don't think I really know him, actually. I know that name. I have seen that name a billion times. And I know I'm friends with him on Facebook, I think. But I don't think I really know who he is, and I feel bad about that. I don't mean to say that like he's not important or anything. I don't think I really know.
No, well, he's not important.
And I'm sorry, by the way, that I'm like standing up and doing all this shit right now, but I've got my whole setup just on my back porch, like on the one little table I have. So I just have no room otherwise. So I hooked up the mic stand and the mic and all that shit. So do you want to dig
Brad,
into
I sent you the link?
Do you want to dig into what's going on right now?
You know, I've got a lot of
I think as white people, we all have mixed emotions, if we're being honest.
Oh, absolutely. And the problem is that it's not a situation that I can relate to. And I also don't know what the target is. And I feel like everything that's being talked about is stuff that's like no duh shit, but obviously not no duh to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so then me, myself, Jeremy Danley, what's my role? What's my responsibility? And that's a difficult one because if I go, oh, well, it's this, then that's just me basically making plans, goals, targets, and setting those for somebody else, like spending someone else's money. This is what you should do. Oh, this is what you should do.
Well,
but what I can say is along the lines of what you were talking about earlier, like anybody that's rolling around going, I stand in protest as well. And then they're the ones that are the troublemakers that are going around, like
breaking shit.
Little white kids being punks.
Yeah, you're fucking 19 and from Urbandale.
As cover, then like businesses. And I'm not for framing these arguments in ways that are only one-sided and making a straw man, weak-ass argument out of the other side. I'm not for most of the conversation that takes place on social media, while I'm obviously having a fucking conversation on social media. So whatever comes out of my fucking mouth has no, like, what bearing or importance does it have at all? My skill has always been uniting crowds through laughter, and unfortunately, we can't fucking do that right now.
I think,
when it's probably better than ever. So that's about all I have to say on any of it before I start going down an alcoholic rage.
Yeah.
Because I have the best month of my career, Billy Burr. There's never going to be another 420 ever again. There's never going to be another April 2020 ever again. JerDog in the month of 420, it was supposed to be a record breaker, dude. I'm still resentful. And
as you should be.
Oh, at least you had a comedy career. You're privileged. You had a comedy career. Some of us didn't have a comedy career.
Well, and see, that's kind of my point. is
Not my impression, by the way.
I think I may have said this earlier. I don't remember, but young people make that mistake of thinking business owner means rich. And we have that same thing where we come in to a place and they treat us like we're like some kind of fucking celebrity, but they don't know the bar owners only paying us like between $400 and $600. You know, I mean, they don't they think because we have a microphone and we're in front of everyone and we're an entertainer that we have a whole bunch of money. And that's what's going on right now. These fucking kids.
I like that they think. I like that the crowds thought that, because then they would like. Oh,
no, that's great. But the kids think that business owner means rich, so they don't give a fuck. They'll break out Joe's lawnmower repairs window because they think Joe is rich.
Here's Brad. Brad says that our shit talking together sounds familiar. Brad has recently tried doing stand-up comedy as well. He is
Why do I know your name, Brad?
I did the Wild West show with JerDog for a couple of years at Adventureland. Mm-hmm. And I don't. Have you ever been to the Tee Comedy Club?
Yes. Okay,
there was an open mic night, and I was the ventriloquist.
Well, I wasn't there that night, but
okay. Sorry, I'm so pale.
Tell me this: you're actually a ventriloquist?
I was
or were you faking being one?
No. Actually, I've been trying. I've been trying. I've been kind of inspired to do something. I've been watching a lot of Jeff Dunham and Darcy Lynn, Terry Fader, and all that, all those other successful ventriloquists, and I was like, well, you know, is that something anybody can really do? And
yes.
Oh God!
I'll give you the secret right now, Rob or Brad. I'm sorry, Brad.
That's okay.
I will give you the secret right now to being a successful ventriloquist. All you have to do is smile the whole time.
I do.
That's it. Mm-hmm. You just go. You just go, hey guys, I fucking.
Well, you know when you try to say T's and T's and M's
you gotta
and
do that.
It's a ditch.
But if you smile the whole time, none of it matters.
I know, right? And they're looking at the puppet too. So
yes. And if you're Jeff Dunham and you're doing the fucking Civic Center, everybody's a great ventriloquist from a football field away.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Fine.
But it's also a matter of what you. It's also a matter of your material too.
Of course. Have you watched Dumbfounded? Have you watched that documentary?
Dumbfounded.
Dumbfounded is the name of it.
I haven't seen that. No.
You will thank me. I promise. Look it up and watch it. It's got Terry Fader's in there. It's just all about. There's this whole convention of ventriloquists and this whole thing. And in the movie, there's a guy who works the cruise ships, and he's done very well on them, but it screwed his marriage up. And so, literally in the movie, he's like on the phone talking to her and trying to figure out, like, oh, I guess I need to go home, all that stuff. Now, go back to the time when they were filming it, because you know how it is. You film something, it takes a year or two to put it out there. Well, I ended up opening for this dude at the Funny Bone. Right after that was filming, he was trying to find a way to not have to be on the cruise ships all the time. So he got booked in clubs and trying to figure it out. And I opened for him, and all I did all week was make fun of him because it was very clear that all he did was smile the whole time. He had this fucking guy.
Yeah, I can really talk. Yeah.
Yeah, he had this one puppet that would sing, and he'd be like, please let me call you sweetheart. And that's all he did the whole time was just talk like this all the time. That's all you got to do is you're like, hey guys.
Well, it's it's not an easy thing. I actually texted Dog today because I was walking around, or I was walking around the block today and listening to Pandora Radio, and it just so happens that one of his routines came up on the Pandora Radio, on the Bob and Tom radio channel. And then I told him about the a couple months back, right before the pandemic, I went down to Teehee to do my, I guess it was a 5 minute bit. It was open mic night, and I was in theater for close to 25 years total. Never had a problem with lines, never had a problem with characters. And I don't really think I had a problem when I was doing the Wild West show either. I mean, there were a couple times when I had problems, but not as problems. Yeah, a lot of problems. Is that what you said?
I don't have a problem.
No, well, okay, not as many problems as I had when I was doing the mic. Let me rephrase that. Okay, I never. Okay, I may have had character problems when I was at Adventureland, but I had never.
But you knew the lines.
I basically
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Fight.
No, I was basically looking at my puppet. I was basically looking at my puppet, and I freaking froze. I had no idea what to say. I had no idea what to do, and I pretty much looked at the audience, and I was like, "Folks, I got to be perfectly honest with you. This is the first time I've ever done ventriloquism, and in fact, this is the first time I've never done stand-up before.
Yeah,
never. I mean, because that's Dog. Yeah, thanks, Dog. Appreciate it. See,
that's a lot of elements to combine.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
and the audience was really supportive. They were clapping. They were very supportive. And then my character. Started breaking out and started being a jerk again, kind of like Dog is doing right now. But the nice thing is that I didn't have to deal with hecklers.
Hey, good point.
Oh my God!
They don't like hecklers and teehees. No, seriously, they don't like hecklers and teehees. It's just
Well, it's a comedy centric place. I mean,
yeah, I've never.
Teehees is ran by Sid, who is a comic. So what Sid has done with opening that place is made it all about the show, and a lot of clubs forget to do that. So he's doing great in that regard.
Yeah,
but the problem is it sustainable? Can you keep that place open this whole time, just having two bartenders that see a light and go fill a drink? And what he did was cut way down on the overhead in order to make it about the show, which is what all of us as comics want out of a club.
Yeah.
But what we as comics forget is that this is a business. And someone that's renting a building or a space and throwing comedy in there, that's a paycheck for you potentially. Yeah. So you can't criticize one or the other. If you look at a bigger club, like the Funny Bone, for example, they've got 12 waitresses to pay. They've got a kitchen staff to pay. They've got food runners to pay. They've got comics to pay. They've got bills to pay when it comes to the lights and everything else. And people fail, like I was telling JerDog earlier, they fail to realize you can turn off every fucking thing in that club, and yet still it's $500 a month just to keep the fucking freezer on. Yeah. So what do you think What do you think that means among the whole staff and everything else? If it's 500 bucks a month just to keep that cooler on, what do you think it costs to keep 30 people employed, plus that cooler, plus the lights, plus the sound system, plus all that shit? It costs them $3,000 just to unlock the door.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would get pissed at these younger comics that would act as if the Funny Bone did nothing for them. Oh, these guys don't support local comics and blah, blah, blah. Bitch, what the fuck you think I am? I've been paying my child support on this club for 20 years. I live here. Yeah. I am a local comic. And you know why they haven't supported you? Because you didn't do shit other than convince the Des Moines Register to write an article about your show. That's it. You weren't out on the road. You weren't getting your teeth kicked in. You weren't doing any of this shit. And the last clash that I judged at the Funny Bone, Ed Burrows won. I don't know if you know who Ed Burrows is, but he's a great kid. He's in a wheelchair and all this. I have taken that dude on the road for fucking 6 years. Like, you name the venue. You've worked with JerDog. JerDog, it was the same shit as I was doing. Like, I'm in North Dakota, South Dakota, you name it, for 3-4 days, going, show to show to show, hotel to hotel to hotel. And all these guys that were in that clash with Ed, they started comedy way before Ed. They were doing these open mics, but the thing is, that's all they were doing. They were doing an open mic here and there. They were, but this dude was on the road grinding with me, and so when that clash happened, he wiped the fucking floor with everybody. It wasn't even close. It seriously was not even close. And when I judge those shows, I do them begrudgingly. I don't really want to. I told them out of the gate, I don't want to be a judge, because if someone wins that knows me, everyone else is going to say, well, he only won because he knew Bill Blank.
Right.
So I don't.
You can't win. Either way, you can't win.
So what I do every time I judge them, I give every single comic the same score. I give them 3s all the way up and down. And I write in the notes whatever the fuck I thought. If, in fact, I actually watched them, to be honest with you.
Well,
that's the other thing about judging. That makes me have to sit in the back of the room and watch everybody's set, and I really don't want to do that.
Those contests are just a marketing ploy anyway. Those contests don't make for your career. They go, oh, you need to go to such and such festival. You'll be seen by these guys. Yeah, I already work for them. I already do gigs for them. Why would I need a comedy competition? Like, there's enough to go around.
Well, that's my whole point behind not wanting to judge it, because this shouldn't be judged. This is art. This is subjective. This is.
Right up for Brad, everybody. Our first guest at work.
Oh, did he log off? I'm sorry. Did we dominate it too much?
But yeah, that's all right. We're more. That's what anyway. Take him off. He had that Uncle Fester white skin with the Jew
from Under Armour shirt, click clack.
Yeah. I was like, all right. And then I noticed that when he was on, our listenership dropped to 0. So, you're making a point. You got to bring something to the table, boy. You got to bring something to the table, kid.
Yeah. You got to bring a listener or two, or a watcher.
I think he was the watcher. And then we put the audience member on stage with us, and then we're like, what happened to the audience?
Kind of like that bachelorette party story I told last week.
Exactly. I'm waiting until every one of them goes down that elevator.
I did.
If you're a real comedian, you would have made it funny.
It turns out 10 or 15 years later, it's a proud moment, though. Like, at the time, I was fucking terrified. But I was just fed up. I didn't give a fuck anymore.
I think that's the part that I miss the most is right now, those terrifying experiences. I know I said earlier that I've never really been afraid to be in front of a group, but it wasn't to be in front of the group or being able to speak my mind. It was like, and terrifying is not even the right word. It's more like,
Yeah, it's like it's too much. Terrifying makes it too much.
right, but
you're scared nonetheless.
you it gives you those what's going to happen. That's next.
Well, because
What's going to happen next?
we're so rarely
right.
we are so rarely truly uncomfortable. Like, even when the whole room is uncomfortable, we're still comfortable. So, like, it really comes down to just commitment, because when you approach an audience knowing that you're doing nothing but new material,
Yes,
you just have to commit to sucking. Like, you have to know when you go into it, this has a very high potential for sucking.
right. Can't
So
care.
you're basically committing to getting the shit beat out of you at that point. And how many people on the face of the earth going into a situation commit to getting the shit kicked out of them? Comics are the only ones that do that.
UFC fighters. I gotta imagine there's some MMA fighters, not UFC, but maybe MMA fighters, maybe UFC. But there's definitely like the low level MMA fighters. I would be willing to bet that they go in, they know they're losing that one. Like,
dude, my son
they gotta get
is a professional wrestler right now. He's fucking.
How awesome is that?
He just turned 18 last month, and he's a professional wrestler right now, and it's so hard for me to grasp, like, going into a match. Ready for Rumble! And I didn't see my son being enough of an exhibitionist to be able to pull that off. I thought, like, I wasn't worried about athletic ability or being able to pull off a move or anything like that. I was not worried about that. I knew that he had the ability to do that part. I didn't think he had the ability for the theater, because I just never felt. Yeah, I never felt like he was able to be comfortable enough to just be himself amongst his peers. So naturally, how the fuck can you be yourself amongst a bunch of total strangers? And I went to his first match, and the kid fucking killed it. It was amazing. And I was a fucking emotional basket case afterwards. Because the only thing that I ever cared about from the moment he was born was to show him that he can really do whatever he wants if he commits fully and he works at it. And my son, I've been the problem child in my family my entire life. I grew up with a straight A student for an older sister, a straight A student for a younger brother who was also an All-American baseball player. Literally, like, in college, he was All-American. And my other little sister from my dad and my stepmom was a straight A student and an all-state athlete. And my stepsister from, my stepdad's previous marriage was also a straight A student. And I barely got C's. And my entire upbringing was everyone telling me, like, you're really smart, you're just lazy. And so all I did
Yeah.
All I did that whole time was make that self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? Like I never felt like I was smart enough because of all my siblings, and I also felt that I was lazy. I was just a lazy ass. So I sat around, and my major motivation for everything I did in my life was, how can I be as lazy as possible and still get by? Like that was basically what it was. Like,
Words of wisdom.
I used to have a bit back in the day because my ex-wife, after my son was born, my ex-wife would go to work every day, and I'd be at home with my son all day. And then as soon as she got home from work, I would just be like, here you go. And I'd go to the comedy club. And I'd get home at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, eventually she got sick of that shit. But
oh, Brad's back. Brad's back.
But the point is, I was so proud. I was so proud, and I was so emotional because that was the first time, you know, the entire time leading up to that, my whole family was thinking I was just a loser that was lazy and didn't want to work. I was doing comedy because I didn't want to have a job. I didn't want to, you know. So I'd get all that shit, and I used to tell them all the time, even back then, I'd be like, I'm just trying to show my son that he can do whatever he wants. And that night that he had his first wrestling match, it was like all of a sudden for 18 years.
It all culminated, right?
No matter how much I was getting chastised, I stuck to my guns.
Yep.
And this was the reward. Because I was always playing the long game. I looked at it like, I'm trying to raise a man. He's going to be a man so much longer than he's going to be a little boy. So I'm trying to raise an adult. I'm not trying to have fun with a little kid. I'm trying to raise a fucking adult. And that's where grandparents will fuck it up a little bit, because the grandparents will project all their regrets of being a parent onto you. So they'll try to tell you, you need to enjoy this. They're only going to be little for so long. And in a way, they're right. Because you know, when you're a young parent, I mean, I think 24 years old when my son was born, 23. So like at that time in your life, you're not thinking about being a good parent. You're just fucking trying to survive. And so you got your parents parenting your parenting, telling you you're doing the wrong thing, you're doing this or that, and you end up thinking that everybody's against you. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's not even 18 yet, and he's having his first wrestling match, and my entire family is there. It took fucking 10 years to get my mom to go to a comedy show.
My parents think that it was the dumbest thing to do to even think about trying to do ventriloquism at 47.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Brad Feingold is back again. All right, Brad, what do you want?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, yeah.
Nice to know that the host can be a dick.
JerDog's a bully. We gotta do the next episode with a fucking anti-bullying Ghostbusters thing over your face the whole time. Just
if you see something, say something.
All right, Brad. Thank you for chiming in. Thanks for telling your
thank
story.
you. So and thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good show, guys.
One last question.
Have
What
a
do you
good
do?
show. It's been an hour and 35 minutes. The show has been.
We're done.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know you guys.
Oh, we don't plan on ending it. We don't have time limits. We don't place anything on here. But
yeah, what do you want to know, Doug?
All right, Brad Feingold, everybody.
Oh, he found the applause button. Good for you.
All right.
So,
what else?
What do you like when we're talking about everything that's going on right now?
Yeah.
Do you feel any responsibility to like care about it, or do you feel like you shouldn't and just like
I feel a tremendous responsibility to care about it because what I'm noticing is this nonstop escalation.
Yeah.
You know, one thing leads to another. Equal and opposites continue to attract. In the chaos, there's a lot of murkiness for bad actors to show up and do things that have zero to do with an intelligent conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I kind of feel like Mr. Pink and Reservoir Dogs. Fuck sides. We need a little fucking solidarity right now.
What do you think our responsibility? What do you think our responsibility as middle-aged white guys is in this whole situation?
I don't know.
You don't? I mean, when I say what do you think, I don't mean what's the answer. I mean what do you genuinely in your heart feel our responsibility is as white people in this situation? It doesn't have to be right or wrong.
Mostly listen.
Yes.
And then on individual levels that are within your purview to do something as your talent, skills, ability, knowledge, strength, resources, etc., allow 100% and to the fullest to whoever, whenever, and however you possibly can. And that's the motto that I've always lived by. And for the not always, we all fuck up, we all make mistakes, we all get on our phone arguments with people and tell them to shut their pie holes.
Well, I always look at it. One of my favorite song lyrics in the history of the world was from Rage Against the Machine, which, God damn it, do we need those guys really bad right now? But there was a lyric from Rage Against the Machine that is, why stand on a silent platform, fight the war, fuck the norm? And I've lived by that since I was in my early 20s. The first time I ever heard it, I was like, that's exactly. So when we see athletes or Oprah or you name it, these people speaking out where other people tell them to stick to whatever it is that they do. You know, when LeBron says something, shut up and dribble. When Oprah says something, fuck you, you're a billionaire. You know, you name it. The reason that I don't condemn them is because if you have a platform that is greater than any normal person, it's so fucking irresponsible not to use it. And when I was having that meeting the other day that I was telling you about with the principal, he said to me at one point, well, you're a brand. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. I'm not a brand. And when I answered that way, he looked at me like I was being ridiculous, like I was selling myself short or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not. But I do have more Facebook friends than the average guy. You know, that the average person, their whole social media presence is based on people they actually know. And guys like me and you, we've got a whole bunch of people on our social media that actually do know us, but we also have way more people that don't. And so even though I don't have this platform that reaches millions and millions, I do have a greater platform than the average guy. So if I don't use that platform to increase the sum of human happiness in the world, I'm being very irresponsible.
Yeah. See, and that's the way I would look at it more. You know, what are our distinctions? For me, our distinctions is that we're comedians, not that we're white guys. Like I don't know, and that's a very difficult one to address without having some sort of backlash. But really, that is the distinction for me.
Well,
It's like Goodfellas. You know, you
my
can get
answer to
walked in the
that,
back.
my answer to that is, we need to understand that any minority, any person of color, anybody that we know personally knows where our heart is. So we can say whatever we want to them. Like I was just talking to a friend of mine last night who happens to be a black dude that's, you know, a good friend of mine. And I drove by his house like I don't know, like a week ago. I'm driving by his house. He's out in the front in the front lawn, watering something. And I had my window down and I honked and waved or whatever. And then I stopped my car and I'm like, what are you doing? You look like a fucking lawn jockey. And like we laugh our asses off because he knows me. We're friends. He knows where my heart is. I can make that joke to him. But what most people have to understand is you can't apply everything to your own personal experience. You have to understand that everyone else has a different experience. So while I can pull up in front of my friend's house who's black watering the lawn and call him a lawn jockey and we can all laugh about it, I can't put that out there to the general public because anyone seeing me say that doesn't really know me. So we need to understand that and be more careful. And just not assume everybody knows us, basically.
No, exactly. Well, exactly. Which is how, you know, I tend to operate anyway. Like I never liked the guys that go around and they're doing their fucking roast humor to people just in the
just to say I know how to roast.
That's what a lot of social media is now also. It's people that have never done any kind of comedy or any kind of performer, any kind of actual unfiltered communication other than being able to belt out their opinion on a social media comment, which is usually very not one-sided. It straw man's the other side. It makes the other side look, you know, as ridiculous they can possibly make. They try to use sarcasm. They're not very good at it. It comes out as just mean-spirited. I'd rather not engage in any of that. And I think that is mostly what has contributed to a lot of the hostility and pent-up aggression and frustration.
Well, because what
that is being unleashed. It's not just over one thing. It's a whole.
Nobody wants
boiling over.
Nobody wants anyone to stay silent when there's oppression and when there's things that don't affect you. I mean, if you look at everything in the history of this country, the only time anything changed for the better was when people that it didn't affect started caring about it. So right now, the movement needs white people to care about it. But what it also needs is white people to shut the fuck up. Because this is not our charge to lead. This is the time for us to follow. This is the time for us to listen to our Black community leaders and our local NAACP and our local BLM movement and all that. As white people, if we want to help, we just show up. It's not about calling your one Black friend and asking them how we can help, as if they answer for their entire race.
Right.
And that is the core of the problem. Could you imagine that every day you walk out of your house, you represent millions of people with your thoughts and actions and words and whatever? Everything you do and say applies to this entire group. We have never had that as white dudes. No one, we can have an opinion, we can say whatever we want, and no one at any point is going to misconstrue our message. And that's what we got to recognize. We have the ability.
In Cedar Falls.
What's that?
Unless you're headlining Jokers in Cedar Falls.
Yeah, well, fuck
Then
those.
you might have everybody.
They were all white. Fuck them. It's fine. But seriously, I mean,
well, I think that I don't know that that's not true. I don't know that that's not true. There have been a lot of places that I've been to where I think it's just you're the outside. When you're the outsider, people misconstrue your intentions. There have been times when I'm me, dressed like me, in a place where there are other people that look like me and are dressed like me, and but they don't know me because everybody in that particular town knows everybody else.
Except you.
It's like
you stand
except
out.
You. I'd still come by and see why there's this minivan parked in the laundromat. You know, it was like, well, God forbid I did some laundry. You know, where are you from? Why you got out of state plates? What's going on here?
But that's exactly the perfect scenario. Now look at that. In that moment, you were marginalized. In that moment, you were an outsider. And you got treated differently and all that stuff. Now, imagine having to live every hour, every minute of every day with that on your shoulders.
That was me as a kid when I was the only kid in class whose parents were divorced.
Right. So just take that moment and apply it to every single day and every single hour. And can you imagine how exhausting that would be? You know what I mean? Like this whole entire process is about empathy. The whole thing is about empathy. Just because you're white and you can't possibly understand what someone of color's life is like on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean that you can't look at a moment in your life where you are marginalized and understand that they have to deal with that every single day. You had that one moment where you were the outsider and everybody around you is treating you as such. Take that moment and apply it to every single day of your life. That's what our people of color, our friends, that's what they're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that too serious?
No. Pretty serious.
Did I get less funny? I'm very passionate about this. I mean, I live in the same neighborhood I grew up in. I'm very passionate about making your community a better place rather than leaving it. And so when I watch all this stuff going on, I have a very personal and emotional connection to all of it. And I realize that, I may not be Mr. fucking funny dancing monkey guy when I talk about this stuff, but it really means something to me. It's really important to me.
I think that's also another thing. No, not at all. When you're it's a damned if you do, doomed if you don't scenario, because I can go, oh, whoa, it's like this for me, and then no matter what, that's not as nearly the same comparison.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
everybody applies everything.
Try to relate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's minuscule compared to.
No, you don't know shit. Yeah.
Billions of years. Now, what's your opinion again?
Yeah.
I just told you my opinion. No. So there's too much of that.
That's the whole thing. Don't
I'm like,
say
can I? If the idea is to listen, then the idea is to listen. There's too much posting and talking about how we're supposed to stay silent and listen. I'm going to post about how I'm not posting. I'm going to continue to flat my trap about how I listen. We have 2 ears and a mouth and one mouth for a fucking reason. And I know shit like that's cliche.
No, but it's true though. And it's the same cliche of when you point your finger, there's 4 more pointing back at you. That whole fucking thing. It's true. Everyone projects. Everyone does that. It's a very human thing to do. And what this boils down to is that no one wants to be told that their plight isn't important. So
correct.
When people come out talking about Black Lives Matter and your answer is no, all lives matter, what's your motivation for answering that way? I mean, honestly, your motivation is, well, they do, but, no. They're not saying Black lives are the only lives that matter. They're saying they matter to TOO, which is also
part of it. I think is the issue. We continue to address and give elevation to nonsensical arguments. There's this constant I'm going to bring up the worst argument on the other side that any person who's past the 7th grade would be able to defeat, and that's going to be continue to be spotlighted and focused on, instead of actually having a little bit higher ground intelligent discussions, which admittedly are beyond my pay grade. This is no one's once asked me what my position is on how we should properly fuel the space shuttle for departure. You know why? Because I don't fucking know shit about it. Why would I know anything about race relations, cultural, anything other than what my life experience has been and who I've related to and how I've related to them? Mm-hmm. And none of it has than how they behaved and what their actions were.
But
unfortunately,
the conversation isn't really about that. It is.
Exactly.
It is in a way actually about that, because what everyone's trying to say is step outside of your personal experience.
But then into who? Or into what specific?
Well, it's so fucking hard to do that. So
it could be an infinite number of them. Pick one and I'll go with it. Who do you want me to pretend to be right now? I'll pretend to be Strawberry Shortcake.
Right.
I'll pretend to be with whoever. Pick anybody. I can
At the
pretend
end
to
of
be
the
him.
day,
Giant yellow dog. I'll pretend to be a giant. I'll pretend to be a mastermind criminal that does get chased by the cops. You want to find out what it takes to be chased by the cops? Dress up in a giant orange jumpsuit and go into Quick Trip and buy a 40-ounce bottle of beer and then drive a piece of shit car down Merle Hay Road.
I
Here's another idea.
fucking went to the bank today. I went to the bank today and made a deposit in the drive-through. And I think you know what my first thought was. Jailhouse Jake saying, I got this new thermos. Do you remember that? You stole a fucking drive-in bank thingy.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been the same night. You bought the 40-ounce and then you did the show. And you started pouring the fucking beer in that thing, and all it did was just spill all over the stage. It just went everywhere.
Yeah.
God damn it, that shit was funny. Jailhouse Jake was so fucking hysterical. I mean, he was a hack. We know that. But God damn it, was that shit funny. Well, get over here and suck your wife's dick.
Just those old jailhouse jokes.
I wish people
that's
yeah, how funny that fucking joke is, though. I got a new cellmate today. He said, "Hey, you want to be the husband or the wife?" And I said, "I want to be the husband." And he said, "Well, then get over here and suck your wife's dick." That joke's fucking brilliant. I don't care what anybody says. And didn't your wife actually write it?
No, she wrote a few of Jake's lines. She did, that became another thing, is the more fucked up stuff you could think of, then to become a Jailhouse Jake bit.
Yeah.
And that was in by that. If you've seen Eddie Murphy, it was influenced by a lot of things, but what reminds me of that now that I've seen, that I was a fan of way back in the day, but didn't know the whole story behind, was Rudy Ray Moore and Dolomite. Have you seen that on Netflix?
The Dolomite movie? Yes. Holy fuck, how funny is that shit?
That's what that was. You know what I'm saying? Taking all them old jokes, putting it into a character, making a taboo kind of a character, and just winning over the crowd like gangbusters.
We were talking the other day about those situations that me and you set up when you were doing Jailhouse Jake. When I remember what it was. I was doing the radio with Ross, and Ross brought it up on the air. He was like, "This thing was so fucking funny." And I remember it because the other like older comics, you remember those guys that would show up like once every 6 months at an open mic and do the same 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you started a new open mic, they were calling you and asking for stage time. I'm like, motherfucker, you're 45. Why are you calling me? So we had all that shit going on. Well, then you and I did that thing, and we did the thing at Billy Joe's, which at that time, it was kind of the same crowd all the time, and it was a fun thing. But then we did it at the Funny Bone at an open mic, and that shit was pandemonium. Fucking cops got called. We had to stand in the parking lot and tell everyone we were kidding. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And like I came off stage.
Off the suit.
Yeah, and my watch, like everyone's trying to hold me back, and Paul, I don't remember. Somebody fucking somehow I lost my watch, and we go outside in the park. We took it all the way to the parking lot, and
That's right.
it was the parking lot where we were like, "Okay, guys, we're kidding," and
Yes.
I came back in. And Paul goes, "Is this your watch?" And he fucking hands me my watch. And I'm like, "I'm sorry. We were just having a good time." And I remember at the end of it, he goes, yeah, it's kind of funny to get fooled by that. Like, it's kind of funny to get fooled like that. It's okay.
It is. Back in the day,
That shit
when we
was-
used to be. They worked
my
at one
God.
place like, and then the other place it was like a black cloud. The audience hated it. They're like, "Oh," but some people were in on it. Ross, some
Yeah.
other ones.
Oh yeah, we did it again at
Billy Joe,
like Mickey
Billy
Finn's
Joe's,
or some weird
yeah.
Irish bar somewhere.
Billy Joe's, and we crushed with it.
Well, Billy
turned
Joe's
over-
was the first one, and I feel like we did it again at some weird like bar. And on my way there, I got a flat tire on the interstate. I remember it, and the guy showed up and changed my tire, and he goes, "Don't tell any cop jokes." And then I showed up at the place, and you were on stage doing Jailhouse Jake. So like I walked into it, and we just kind of, but I hadn't done a set or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like I hadn't done a set. When we set it up before, it was like you did a set, then I did a set, and you heckled me, and all that shit happened. But that
we hadn't set it up properly.
Yeah, that particular incident, the flat tire caused me to get there late. So you were just on stage with the wig and shit, just waiting for me to walk in.
Where's that motherfucker?
And then I come in and we start doing the thing, but there was no fucking context. There was no context, so it just looked like a fucking train wreck. And why is it that was the one time nobody called the cops?
Let's end it on that. I'm hitting the end of the music. That was a good story to end on. My ass is sore and I'm tired.
All right,
and
man.
You're burping.
I'm burping on accident. Ooh.
I have a serious point to make.
Like I'm the grandpa that accidentally farted. Oh, whoops. Sorry.
Fuck off!
Oh, wait.
That's it right there. All right, man. I love you. I'm going to figure out I got to figure out the Podbean page and all that stuff. It's weird. So I'll figure it out. I may have to shut it down and start a new one, but we'll get the audio out there either way. But this was really fun. Really fun.
That was fun.
And now my son's calling me. I think my son was watching the show.